Hi guys, this is Gareth from True Spiritual Awakening. Today I'm going to do a little bit of talking about the entire journey of the soul and the different stages of the journey that the soul embarks on. And I'm just going to use my own experience and my own understanding and realizations of the journey to explain it. Now this is just mine. It's not perfect, it's limited. I may not have all of the finer details, but I feel I have a good enough understanding to try and explain it to the best of my ability, and it's my truth. This is just coming from my direct experience. So what I'll start off with is the soul. Basically, the soul descends down into creation and is veiled, and basically it comes down into this physical reality. It's not a physical reality, but from our limited perspective, being in this reality, it feels physical. Okay, and the soul is wrapped in our own individual being. We have our free will, we have our intellect, our senses, and basically we perceive and we interpret the information coming from around us, our surroundings, right? Basically what it is, it's like a virtual reality. Okay, the soul descends down into this creation. Okay, it starts to live its life. It's conditioned by its parents, its surroundings, everything that goes on. It gets mesmerized by what's on the outside. It wants to survive. It has a drive to keep itself safe, to procreate, all of these different things. And basically that is its goal, is to survive. Now, while that's going on, this sense of I-ness kind of becomes like a concrete identity in us, and we basically give over our power to this separate self, this separate psychic being that seems to want to control everything. And basically the ego is not bad. It's just a mechanism that's in service of fear. Basically, we're here, we have all this danger and this uncertainty going on in this creation, and our systems have to deal with fear. And basically the ego is what tries to make us okay living with fear. So it basically tries to soothe, it tells us, okay, everything is all right. And there's this story, and it's trying to tell us that we're better than the next person, or and it can be positive ego or it can be a negative ego, but basically that's what it's doing. It's trying to look out for that illusional sense of separateness. I am a separate individual that exists within creation. I was born, I will die, and while I'm here, I am going to do the best that I can. I want to succeed. I want to get as much for me, me and mine. So this is the story. This is basically what happens lifetime after lifetime. We descend down, we have our life, we live it, we go through ups, we go through downs. There's happiness, there's sadness, everything has duality. There's there's two sides to every coin. We get something, we lose something. There's never a sense of true happiness or true satisfaction. It's always this striving on and on and on and on. It's a grind, hard work. Eventually the soul starts to come out of this for whatever reason. Lifetime after lifetime, it starts to realize that I'm never going to find happiness in this outside world, in this illusion, in this Maya. And basically the soul then starts to cry out for something greater than itself. Okay, and this is where the supreme being then starts to descend down, in the form of a guru or a teacher, and that individual then has a teacher, has somebody to help them to realize that the world is not the way that it's perceived. So as it is, the senses, we have our vision, our taste, our scent, our hearing, touch, and basically that is how we interpret our reality through them senses. And the first stage of that realization is that we start to withdraw our senses from the world around us. We start to, okay, I can't find anything out there, so I'm going to bring my attention back in on itself. And this is where stuff starts to quieten down and peace starts to come in, and a sense of witnessing, this sort of a sense of something that's, oh, hang on, first of all, I thought I was my mind, I thought I was my body, I thought I was, all my thoughts and my ego and the sensations, and now there seems to be this awareness, this awareness that is just aware. It's always aware and it's watching. What happens is there starts to become gaps in the train of thoughts. Little gaps at first, even just a couple of seconds, but just little gaps, and then all of a sudden the awareness starts to come in, and it's almost witnessing. So all of a sudden there's a sense of something that's a witness to all of this that's going on. And then all of a sudden there starts to be this sort of a realization, well, if there's a witness of my thoughts and my feelings and my sensations, well then I can't be both. So what am I really? And this is where self-inquiry starts to come in, and we start to try and question, what is this? What is this that's witnessing the thoughts? If there's thoughts, who's the one that witnesses the thoughts? And basically, with enough practice of this, or whatever, satsang, groups, all these kind of teachings, the first stage of the journey is basically that the soul awakens to the reality of itself, okay? And it stops witnessing and it turns around and it witnesses itself. It's like, oh, okay, I'm all of this. Now, that soul that is at the center of you, that has just realized itself, this is sort of like the cosmic self, okay? So first of all, there is the ego. You're identified as a person living in this reality, and all of a sudden you get this sense of, oh, okay, there's this beautiful awareness, it's awake to itself. That's the cosmic self, and it's known as cosmic consciousness or self-realization. That's the very, very first step on this journey that the soul takes. So first of all, it comes down into creation. It gets caught up in all of the illusion. If thousands of lifetimes, eventually it gets frustrated and it can't find happiness. It's known as dejection, and the soul cries out for help. So it either turns up in the form of the guru or scriptures, or something helps to awaken the soul. The soul starts to wake up. It starts to realize what it is. It's this cosmic self. It's woken up. It's gone from the identity of the human to the reality of that cosmic self. So that self is now awake. The next stage, so the human is still here, still in creation. That cosmic self is still in creation. Okay, when I'm talking about creation, I'm talking about our physical reality, okay, which is not physical, our dreaming state, waking dreaming, all the astral realms, all the gods, all of them are within creation, okay? So the self has woken up to itself. It still exists within creation. It's still sort of attached to this psychic being, okay? The two of them have a direct connection to each other. That psychic being can then withdraw into that self at any stage. Okay, it's now living in this sort of place of freedom, okay? Before it totally thought that it was this body. And now all of a sudden it's I'm all this spaciousness, this awareness, this unboundedness. After a while, after a certain amount of time, of living with this state, that awareness looks out through your eyes, and it then starts to notice that, okay, well, if I am the cosmic self that's in behind, what's outside. And it starts to see, in nature, it starts to see this beauty starts to open up, and the cosmic self starts to see itself outwards. Okay, and this is known as God consciousness, and it's sort of a feeling of love. The heart opens up. Oh, that this beauty, there's something opens up, and this portal of newness and freshness, and I am all of this. This is all for me, and that's called God consciousness. And that's not a stable state. That's a kind of an opening up and a closing back down, but you're staying in that state of self-realization, the cosmic self. That's what you are. That's your baseline, and you're kind of going back, and this is opening and beauty and there's bliss, and Shakti starts to sort of descend down into the form. It's really great. Again, it's going on. It's being perceived through the body mind in creation. The cosmic self is still in creation. The next stage is unity consciousness. And unity consciousness is another shift, sort of like that first shift of where the self awakens to itself. And basically what happens is the cosmic consciousness that is sort of housed within your being, okay? It then, the container which is keeping that sense of the cosmic self separate from its outside, that is smashed, or it something breaks, or it's lifted away, and there's a sort of a shift into unity. So the cosmic self becomes one with the reality around itself, and it's panoramic, and it's almost like the edges of what you are that keeps you separate from your reality, they seem to get erased, and the self that's within and the consciousness that's without all merges. It all becomes one. There's this sense of I am one with everything. Okay, again, it's still within creation. It's still being experienced through that body, mind, I-ness. There's a I am one with everything. Okay, this is not enlightenment. People seem to think that unity consciousness is enlightenment. It's not enlightenment, right? There are steps along the way. This is just one of the steps. So this is a really, really beautiful state. There's a lot of bliss. There's a lot of oneness. The Shakti, it can sometimes be accompanied by the Kundalini rising up into the brain. Unity. I am one with everything. This is my creation. This is all me. And it's almost like it's identified. It's been experienced through the intellect. The intellect is having the understanding that it is one with everything. Again, it's not the finish. It's not the end, like a lot of people seem to think. For me, after unity came what's known as Sahaja Samadhi. And this is the sense of I, okay, which is in the heart. And that sense of I kind of precedes all other thoughts. I becomes before everything. Every sort of thought that comes in to your mind follows the I, and the I jumps from the heart up into the intellect, and the I then the intellect then runs off with I need this and I need that and blah blah blah, and it goes off and off and off. That's still existing. That I-ness is still there. That I is when somebody, says something mean or hurtful, it's felt in the chest. There's still an I, there's still a not there in the heart. And basically at Sahaja Samadhi, that I thought dissolves. And I was shown how it happened. It literally it's almost like there's a conduit that goes from the spiritual heart right up into the intellect. And I saw it jumping up, and the conduit had been removed, it had been severed, okay, and the I thought had nowhere to go. Jumped up, sort of like this little psychic whack-a-mole, that you hit at these games. Jumps up, it was popping its head up, and it had nowhere to go. It kind of looked around, and it just fell back down into the heart, and it dissolved back into the spiritual heart. And at that stage, the I is gone. It's dissolved. It's full self-realization. That's it. It's not that the ego dies, it's that the I that precedes the ego is in service of that psychic I. And when that I dies, the ego just has no power. It has no job. It's no longer in service of this psychic I that's separate from everything else. It dies. Everything goes quiet. You don't care. Everything is just happening. You're like a ghost walking around. There's still somewhat a sense of an individual that, you know, if somebody calls your name, you can oh yeah, that's me, yeah, my order's ready, yeah, over here. You're still able to be in the world, but that I and that ego now have been severed. Okay, it's gone. And that came after unity consciousness for me. The two were quite close together. I didn't have an awful long time in unity consciousness, but that I-ness dissolved. So the next shift is what's known as Brahman. Okay, and basically, it's sort of like the very first shift, going from the ego, the identity of the ego, the body, the mind. I am a human in creation, to that the self, the cosmic self waking up. Okay, now Brahman is sort of like the cosmic self is remembering itself before it became conscious. Okay, it's prior to consciousness. It's a dim awareness, and basically it's like that shift into self-realization, only the cosmic self is remembering itself as this primordial consciousness prior to consciousness. It's the no self. Some people refer to it as the no self. So basically, the self is pulled back into that Brahman, and the Brahman becomes aware of itself. It's like, oh, I know what I am. This is what I am. I'm outside of creation, and there's nothing going on there. It's not conscious. It's not consciousness. It's not aware of itself, but there's sort of like it knows it exists. Very, very dim, and it exists outside of creation. So basically what's happening now is the individual who's in creation, part of that awareness has now merged with the Brahman. The Brahman now knows itself as Brahman. Okay, it's not the individual in creation going, oh, I know that there's a Brahman outside, I have realized Brahman. That's not what it is. Brahman has now realized itself. Okay, and the individual who's still in creation now knows that all of creation exists within what it is. This Brahman, it's outside. All the gods, all the goddesses, all the different astral realms, all the virtual realities, our reality, all exists within this bubble in creation. Outside of that bubble is Brahman, is the no self, primordial consciousness. And this is the Great Awakening. This is the first stage of enlightenment. Okay, is realizing the Brahman. Or the Brahman becoming aware of itself. It wakes up to itself. So from that state then, you come back down. You lose that sense of this is all my creation. Unity seems to diminish. It goes flat. A lot of the love disappears. A lot of the bliss disappears. It's sort of everything. None of this really exists. So does it? The person that's down in creation is now sort of going, well, none of this is real. This is just all. I know what I am. I know this is basically the substratum which all of creation is sort of displaying itself on, and I am that. And reality almost displays itself to you. The minute you open your eyes or you look at something, it's manifested, and the minute you close your eyes or you turn away, it crumbles. People don't exist. Now, it's not that they don't exist, but that's the sense that you get, that nothing ever really existed. You know, it's just all been just displayed for me, for my enjoyment, my, you know, me to have this experience in creation. And you know that, and that's what you are, and that's, you just see through everything. Everything is just manifesting and crumbling as you put your attention on it. If you don't put your attention on it, it doesn't exist. That's a lived, that is totally lived. So that can take a while. You can be in that state for God knows how long. Okay, and then what happens is there's another shift, which is, some people will call it para Brahman. Okay, and basically what it is, from that, back before we even came into creation, there was this primordial consciousness, the Brahman, the no self. It wasn't yet consciousness. There was awareness, but it was very dim. It started to evolve. Now, I don't know. People say, "Well, how did it evolve?" I don't have all the answers, but you know, the awareness started to maybe kind of become aware, some sort of a sense of it became aware of itself, and from that evolved the Supreme Being, or God. Okay, and from that Supreme Being, it then split into two. There was the female, the Shiva, the Shakti, the Supreme Being, the female, the Divine Mother. So the Divine Mother is what's creating. She's almost like a supercomputer, which is creating all of this creation for us to play in. Okay, and from that Supreme Being, we are now part of that. So part of the Supreme Being descends down. It divides itself up into all of these different parts to interact in the Divine Mother's play. So they're all in as us. And also, that part of the Brahman is the cosmic self. So the droplet of the Brahman also descends down into creation as that cosmic self that's within us. So now all of a sudden we have all these interactive players in creation, okay, interacting with each other, evolving, becoming love. That one individual who's gone through all these different stages, the self-realization, the God consciousness, the unity consciousness, the Sahaja Samadhi, the part of their cosmic self gets sucked back into the Brahman. Brahman realizes itself as that, as the Brahman. The individual in creation knows now that it is the Brahman. It exists without that, outside of creation. So then what happens is the individual merges back in with the Supreme Being. Okay, and that Supreme Being is different to the Brahman. And so I experienced both. I experienced the Brahman, the no self, terrifying nothingness. There's nothing there. It's absolutely, you're just pulled into it, and there's nothing exists there. There's something, as you're entering it, you kind of have this sense of, oh, I'm going to be obliterated. Okay, and I went into it. You come back out, you get a sense of what just happened. Again, there's fear. You come back into creation. It's like, whoa, what was that? Merging with the Supreme Being. The Supreme Being is, it's not a being. It's not a being with a personality and an intellect. It is this consciousness, this universal consciousness, whatever you want to call it. Krishna consciousness, God, the universe, the mind of God. And while I entered it, it was almost like this vast sea of love, intelligence. It was this cyan, sparkling blue. And basically what happened was, when I entered that, I stayed conscious. You don't stay conscious when you go into Brahman. But when I entered that Supreme Being, merged with it, I became it. Now, it's not that me as an individual becomes God and I become omnipresent and I know everything and I can read everything and I can see the future and I can be in the minds of all beings. That's not what it is. It's not that I become God. It's that God now, so there's a merging with the Supreme Being, and God can now enter into creation, back down into this world, and use this form, okay, that's gone through this journey, okay, it now can use this form as a channel for manifestation. That individual can now bring in the forces of the Supreme Being, of God, divinity, all of these, the supramental force, the Sat force, the bliss, the Sat Chitananda. That now has a direct channel to come into creation and to have an effect, a dynamic effect on the rest of the individuals who are in creation. Therefore, this is not a journey of reaching a state and being done. I'm enlightened. There's no ownership. There's no individual who becomes enlightened. And this was made very, very clear to me when I merged with that Supreme Being. It's almost like my consciousness merged with the consciousness of God, and the idea that there was an individual, that this form was back down in creation, claiming ownership of self-realization and God consciousness. This was laughable. This was like, wow, how could I have ever been so naive to think that, I had attained anything? I didn't attain anything. There's nothing special about my physical form whatsoever. And this is it, right? Once you get it, you then realize that this physical form is so limited. There's nothing special about me. There's nothing special about Gareth, the personality, the form. But that Supreme Being has a direct channel to enter my body, and for those that are connected with me, I can then have a positive effect, or that force can now have a positive effect. It can then enter your system. It can then start to accelerate that awakening process in all the individuals who are around me. So the people who are in my group, who meditate with me, who are connected with me, linked with me, now that force through me is working on all of them, kind of going out in this sort of a rippling effect that's starting out, and all of them individuals are starting to wake up and become the same. That's the journey. Now, I'm not saying that everybody, all of them are going to get it in this lifetime, but they will then, if they don't get it in this lifetime, come back in, with that same level of consciousness, and they'll start over. But that's the goal. That is the goal, that you become the channel. You are now a tool. You are God's tool in creation. God is then using you, almost like the Krishna's flute. You become that flute which God or Krishna can then make music, beautiful music in creation. You're a divine channel. You are a tool in the hand of God to do His work. You're basically then what happens to the individual. They say, well, okay, Gareth, what's going on with you? Do you lose your life? There's a lot of stuff that falls away. The greed, your own self-servicing. What do I get? What do I get from this? You're looked after, right? There's no doubt about it. The individual is then, everything's, you're willing to do God's work. You're stepping up. You're saying, okay, I'll do it. You just put whatever you want in front of me and I'll do whatever you want. That's it. And you've no sort of, what do I get out of it? You just get looked after. You don't have to worry about it. You're just stepping up time and time again. Whatever's put in front of you, you just do it. And you are the manager. Explained it to me one time. It was like, I just, how do I explain this to people? And it's like, well, if you have a retail store, you have a manager and you have an owner, and the owner employs a manager to look after that store and to make sure everything is running perfectly. The manager, he opens up in the morning, he looks after all the staff, he pays the wages and all the benefits. He gets paid well. All the benefits, all the profits go to the Supreme Being, to God. That's he reaps all the rewards. But this individual, the human form has to be looked after, and that's what happens. It just happens in that way, and that's where I am at the moment. That's where I have come to. That's the journey that I have descended back down. I am now in creation as that dynamic channel. One of the things that happens as you're going through the different awakenings, right, and you can recognize that there are people, that there are beings on this planet, there are avatars, great gurus, and you kind of know that their consciousness is way more evolved than you, right? But basically what happens when you come in this full circle, you do this the complete journey, that even them beings are existing within what you are, and that they are no higher than you. So I don't see anyone that's above me. There's no, gurus or avatars that have a higher realization. I am that ultimate reality. There's nothing. Now, there's two sides to that same coin, because on the flip side, I am no better than anybody else. There's nobody that's lower than me. There's no person lower than me. There are no animals that are lower than me. There's no insects. Even the plants are no lower. It's all me. It's all me. It's all the Supreme Being manifesting as all. So therefore, you can't see yourself above anyone else, or greater, or more special. You become normal. This great journey takes place. You come back down, and that's it. You're here to do work. You're here to be normal. Life becomes normal again. I stop meditating. I don't meditate anymore. I meditate when I work with people, or when I do my groups. But I don't sit there, meditating anymore. There's no more realizations. Now, are there other beings out there that are better teachers? Definitely, yes. They have better tools. Their tool set is greater evolved than mine. But again, I'm only starting. I'm only, in over the next couple of years, my tool set will greaten, and my abilities will get better and better. But in terms of realizations, no, there's nobody. There's no higher realization. Do cities come along with these realizations? They're there if you want them. If you go after them, you can interact with beings, and astral beings and all that stuff. But it's not important. What's important is that you're here to bring in them forces, that you're here to make change in the world, that you're here to help others. You're not in service of yourself. There's not, what do I get out of this? This is, how can I serve humanity? This is what it is. You're just giving everything over to everything else. Everything you've sacrificed, everything you have, just to be that tool in the hands of God. So this has been a really, really long video. I hope if you've stayed with me for all this time, well done, congratulations. Again, as I say at the end of every video, thank you for watching. I appreciate you for taking time to watch it, and yeah, so thank you everybody. Bye bye.